the call. So we'll continue our conversation around the November 2015 question, the 30-mark question. So I think I agreed with UK's last submission on opinion on the comprehensive question we just look at, testing the understanding of client acceptance procedure, speaking to part A. So part A tests the client acceptance procedure and quality management systems in part B and C. So it's a two-part question, with the second and third parts being nearly identical to what we looked at in the last May 2015 question 3, the May 2015 diet on question 3. So I think this repeating that ISQC is because we just updated it to ISQ and highlights the importance of this topic for ICAN exam. So it's a typical prototype if you look at the B part and the C part of what we've looked at previously. Okay, so let's speak to the solution. I think the solution, in my opinion, is confusing. I don't know. Particularly the B and C part. The solution for A is fragmented and lacks the structured, detailed analysis, I think. Okay, the B and C part is okay, but it's just the A part. I think I was having issues around it. But then if ICAN has said this is how it is, then we'll have to take it as it is. But I think the updated B and C part is okay based on the ISQM I updated and the revised 220, ISA 220. So it's a good, I updated it okay. I think the former excuses I was confused, but then the current update resonates more with me, just a prototype of what happened in the last diet, May 2015, the same updated question 3. All right, so for the client acceptance question, the A1 part, or the part A part, is actually a scenario-based question. So we need to direct or link the facts provided in the prompt to the concepts we're actually discussing or we've discussed in the theory. So you need to use a clear structured approach for each sub-part. So for the part A, the first part, the impact of each piece of information is 5 marks. And we need to address each of the 3 points separately. So for the A part, the relationship as a service provider. This is a self-interest threat to independence. So the firm's relationship as a major service provider could create pressure to not issue a qualified opinion to protect a valuable business relationship. So that's the first part and thoughts around what I would think we should speak to. And the acrimonious departure of previous auditors. This is a major red flag, actually. It indicates a risk to the integrity of management and a high-risk client, actually. So you must explain that you need to contact the previous auditors for professional clearance to understand the reasons for their departure. This is very important. And I think you also need to speak to the third scenario, talking about the hostile takeover from an existing client. This creates a conflict of interest. So auditing 2 opposing parties in a hostile takeover situation is a clear violation of ethical standards, and the firm cannot act for both under such condition. That's this decision, I think, that should suffice. Okay, so for the second part, the A2 part, speaking to other factors, we need to list and briefly explain other crucial factors. We need to focus on the firm's own capabilities and the client's risk profile. So management integrity is a vital question we need to answer. Is management honest and ethical? We need to look at going concern risk. Is the company financially viable? The technical competence of your firm. Do you have the skills to audit this kind of industry? You have enough staff, speaking to availability of human resources Then the ethical considerations, are there any other independent or conflict of interest issues? So I think the answer was a bit confusing, but then you need to read it. Maybe it was when I was reading it, I had issues with it, but if I can provide it, follow this roadmap to provide your thoughts clearly. And don't forget, sometimes there are errors in the answerings or in the pathfinders. Maybe it's typing or whatever, but I don't know. These questions didn't really, or this solution didn't really resonate with me. But then let's follow it pragmatically. Then for the third part, the steps to take for the third part. So the step to take in accepting or declining the nomination, I think this is a procedural question. So you should follow this order. Professional clearance first. That's the most critical first step. Contact the previous auditors and request information. The next is to evaluate independence and conflicts. A formal check in this area to ensure no ethical breach. Then for risk assessment, I think a thorough assessment of audit risk and management integrity is very important at this stage. Then the engagement letter, very key. The formal contract that defines the scope of work and the fees to charge should be part of your answers. So finally, the client's identification. To identify the client, ensure due diligence is done on KYC, and require this client identification is required under anti-money laundering regulations, like we've seen in chapter 2. So study around it. If you're not okay with the answers like me, I think you should use ChatGPT or Meta AI to get clarity. You can use AI to test these answers. So follow the way you've read the question. Whatever it is that resonates with you, please answer. I just shared my thoughts on the A part. It was a bit confusing to me, but then I'm your tutor, but then I must admit I was actually confused, but it's okay. Except if somebody wants to share his concerns or his thoughts on that question. You want to share some thoughts and make us clarify. I'm also learning, that I'm not writing the exam does not mean I'm not learning. So somebody would like to share some thoughts? I think those are the things I came across when I was going through the question. Anybody want to share some thoughts? Okay. Well, I believe we'll go back to it and look at it. But the B and the C part, I'm okay with the B and the C part. So the B and the C part, speaking to ISQMs, said we should discuss so in discussing these elements of the system of quality management, the 5 key components, STEM mark. So in writing, I think it's a direct recall question. So present like in the last May 2015 question 3 we saw, present the 5 components and provide a brief explanation for each. So use clear headers like we spoke to, and the writing just the same way we discussed the last diet, governance and leadership, relevant ethical requirements, acceptance, just a prototype. I think it was a direct repeat of the same thing. So just go through it. There's no need restating what we've stated. Okay, so let's go to the C part straight. We've spoken to that in the last diet, so please go through that B part and read it and practice it thoroughly. So the C part, the engagement partner's responsibilities. In writing this question, I think is a direct recall. It's also the same thing we looked at but we need to explain the 4 key responsibilities of the engagement partner under the revised ISA. So the solution provided is good, but the question asks for 4 points for 5 marks. So explanation should be brief. Focus on taking over responsibility for quality, direction and supervision of the team, ensuring an EQR is performed, accepting and continuing the I think ICAN emphasizes good quality or quality management could be a start of your brief, and these are the reasons for that. So I think the three parts question with the marking key stated there graphically. Okay, so read it carefully, I think, and apply it to the scenario. Then don't forget the terminologies to use very clearly, and your structure providing clarity so that the examiner can read through and follow through. All right, I didn't like that question, but then you need to read through it for you to, especially the A part actually, to understand what really transpired. Okay, so I will run to the next question. If you don't have any questions or somebody wants to provide clarity to that question. Any questions or clarifications, observations? All right, so let's go to November 2016. And there's a bit of deviation, but then I'll show us how it links to Chapter 5. So the question reads, All Hope Publication Limited is an old established publishing company owned by two brothers. Over the years, the company has made consistent progress both in sales and profitability. Due to the quality of their work, the patronage of the company has grown to the extent that its working capital cannot accommodate the work on hand. The directors have approached their bankers, Owopo Bank PLC, 100 million to procure essential modern machineries and printing materials, and also for running expenses, particularly salaries. In support of its application for the bank facility, the company has prepared a profit forecast which is being presented to your firm for review. Required. As contained in International Standards on Assurance Engagements 3400, the examination of prospective financial information, PFI. A. What will you take into consideration before accepting this assurance engagement? 5 marks. Enumerate the procedures to be adopted after you have agreed to take up the engagement. So the first thing under B is as regards PFI assurance engagements generally, and 2 on the profit forecast, which is 10 marks. So we have it in 15-mark question, even though it's around prospective financial information, but then the consideration to accept and the procedures you take to agree to take up the engagement is where we need to focus on in answering this kind of question. So take note of it. It's a separate topic, which is ISAE 3400, the examination of prospective information. And looking at the examiner's report, the examiner's report stated performance was poor, with many candidates likely not covering the part of the syllabus. So don't isolate this ISAE. We are yet to come to this chapter actually. So the poor performance suggests that questions on specialized assurance engagements beyond standard financial statements audit are a key area where marks were lost, except if you choose not to do that question. The question requires a detailed practical understanding of the audit procedures and professional considerations specific to reviewing financial forecasts. Okay, so looking at the answers, let's speak to how to address this kind of answer. So in writing what and how, the part A, the considerations before accepting the engagement, which is 5 marks. You need to focus on the pre-engagement activities of an audit firm. So your point should be about the audit firm's own capacity and the establishment of clear terms with the client. So use a list format, kind of like you can see on the solution. Start each point with action verbs like assessing, determining, agreeing, or establishing. So the key is to demonstrate the practical steps an auditor takes before commencing work. So for example, instead of just staff expertise, right? Assess the availability of staff with the necessary expertise in forecasting and provided, the assurance provided, negative assurance, and that the client must understand this situation. So generally in writing the A part, I think for that 5 marks, So 5 points around this would suffice. And for the B part, procedures before accepting the engagement, which is 10 marks. In writing, this section requires a 2-part answer. It's a 2-part because we have number 1 and number 2. So the section, part 1 is a general list of procedures for any PFI engagement, while part 2 focuses specifically on profit forecast. We'll be diving into that elaborately when we get to that chapter. So make sure to distinguish between the two. So the procedures are broader for B1 and relate to the scope of the engagement itself. So think about understanding the context, assumptions behind the prospective financial information. So for example, understanding the intended use of the forecast and the nature of the assumption. In that chapter, we'll look at best estimates versus hypothetical scenario. So use bullet points for clarity. And for the B2 part, the procedures should be more specific and analytical. Directly relate. Okay, yes. I think it should directly relate. It should be directly related to the figures in a profit forecast. This is where you demonstrate practical auditing skills. So points should include things like checking calculations, assessing the consistency of assumptions, performing sensitivity analysis, comparing the forecast to other available data like the company's past performance, and use separate well-defined list for this part to show that you understand the distinction. So we'll generally cover the syllabus. So when we come to this part, I think we'll re-examine and speak to this question on that PFI topic. So the most critical lesson, I think, from the examiner's report is to cover the entire syllabus, including specific topics like this ISA 3400. So don't rely on common topics, and don't choose topics you think the examiner dwells on. Is very risky. So generally, I think strategies around using terms like negative assurance, best estimate assumptions, hypothetical assumptions, sensitivity analysis. This signals to the examiner that you have a deep professional understanding of the subject. So structure and differentiate your answers, because in answering, you need to clearly label each section, A, B1, B2, for questions with multiple parts. Ensure each part is answered separately. You see that the provided solution used subheadings and bullet points is actually an excellent model to follow. Also apply knowledge to the scenario. While this question is more theoretical, I think the best answers would briefly link the procedures to the case study. Like, for example, mention that the profit forecast is for a bank loan, which is a key consideration for the intended users and for their purpose. Yeah. Yes, please, Hassan, go ahead. Your hands are up.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My question is, it has to do with the procedure for accepting audit engagement. So I just want to find out whether the procedures is the same as regards to audit engagement and audit related engagement. Is it the same procedure? That
Exactly.
is in the one hand. That's in at the one hand. Then the other one is then assurance and non-assurance engagement. Is it the procedure? Is it still the same?
Very
even
good.
though I know that audit is also part of an assurance engagement, but for the non-assurance engagement, is it the same procedure, or there are some differences in the procedures?
No, there are no differences in the procedure. So the same way for non-assurance engagement, you must have an engagement letter. Is the same way you have an engagement letter for assurance engagement. So they are the same, in answering your question very succinctly. So the same modus operandi you follow in accepting the client and continue or discontinue is the same thing for assurance and non-assurance engagement. Good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
you for that. Yeah, thank you for that good question. Okay, so I think we're speaking to the marking key now for this kind of question. All right, so we have the marking guide, and for the 5-mark question, we are awarded 1 mark for each of the 5 points. It means we must provide at least 5 distinct relevant considerations. So the solution gives, I think it listed 7. So there's a margin of safety. If you can write 7, it's fine. You get your best 5. So ensure your points are about the acceptance stage, not the execution stage based on the prompt. Then for the B part, the procedure step to adopt on the PIFI assurance engagement. So I think this part B1 awards 1 mark per point for any 5 general procedures. I think the solution lists a broad range of relevant procedures, emphasizing understanding the context of the prospective financial information. So the point about obtaining an engagement letter is actually a starting good point. If you look at the solution, it's a good starting point. Then for part B, which is the second part, which is 5 marks, the sections, its marking guide, you see states half a mark per point for any 10 points. So this is a clear instruction to provide more detailed numerous points than in the other or the preceding sections. It rewards, I think, breadth of knowledge on specific procedures, the breadth of knowledge, I think, of specific procedures. The provided solution gives, I think, a comprehensive list of over 10 specific procedures related to profit forecasts, such as testing calculations, checking consistency, and performing sensitivity analysis. And the strategy of providing a large number of specific points is actually is a key to securing full marks here. So if you state 10 points, you secure your full marks, which is very, very good. So more points, but be very time conscious so you don't overflog a question. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I think those are my thoughts on question 6, November 2016. So any question? Don't mind me, I'm trying to run very fast. There are more questions in practice management, and he has tested it, I think, very consistently each diet. So even though I'm fast, but then I want us to provide context so we can understand how to approach questions, this kind of questions. Any question, contribution? I appreciate the engagement. The engagement is higher this time around than the lectures. Okay, so let's look at the November 2017 question 1 on Bode, Ugo, and Musa Company. The question reads, Bode, Ugo, Musa and Company is a firm of chartered accountants that has existed for over 20 years and achieved a strong reputation for quality audit work. The firm has expanded significantly over the past 10 years, doubling its client base across different sectors of the Nigerian economy. The firm currently audits 2 banks, 5 listed entities, and over 70 other companies. It has also increased its audit staff base and grown the number of its partners from 2 to 7 over the same period. However, in the last 2 years, the firm has series of regulatory reviews due to a number of instances of errors noted in some financial statements audited by the firm. One of the clients, the shareholders of Niger Cap PLC, petitioned the regulator over a misstatement in the value of their investment property. This resulted in overstatement of profit and overpayment of taxes by the company based on the financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2015. The shareholders also threatened to take legal action against the firm. The managing partner of the firm is apparently very concerned about this situation and has commenced internal procedures to evaluate the quality of audit performed by the firm, especially for the Niger Cap audit of 2015. A committee set up by him has conducted a review of a number of audit files and has noted, amongst others, the very poor audit work was performed by the Niger Cap engagement team of 2015, led by Amy Smith, one of the partners who is supposed to retire in 2018. The managing partner has therefore instructed that Oluwatoyin Bide Nkoye, a new partner of the firm, should perform the 2016 audit of Niger Cap. The statement of financial position of Niger Cap as at December 31st, 2016 has been provided to the firm, and some of the balances thereon are shown below. So we have the extract of non-current assets, PPE, intangible assets, investment property deferred tax. We have the extracts from current assets, inventory, and receivables. So the deferred tax relates to unused tax losses that has been accumulated during the past 3 years. Management is confident there will be sufficient future operating profits to claim the benefit of the tax losses in full in future years. Required. Discuss 4 consequences of a poor audit work on the firm of Bode, Ugo, Musa and Company, Chartered Accountants, 5 marks. B, recommend 6 actions that the new partner should implement to ensure that a high overall quality of the audit of 2016 financial statements of NigerCap PLC is achieved. We have 9 marks. Okay, so 14 marks, then maybe these are not the full questions, but this has to do with quality management. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we have November 2017 and we have question 1. So I think the question is a good example of an applied professional issues question. It's testing our understanding of audit quality in a practical and scenario-based context. Okay, so let's see hopefully if there's the examiner's report. Is there the examiner's report? Let me see. Okay, yeah, so the examiner's report indicates that most candidates attempted the question and performance was average, which suggests while the topic is familiar, candidates struggled to, I think, provide the depth and specific detail required for higher marks. The question is directly or a direct application of audit quality management, or I think audit planning also. Okay, so let's share some thoughts on the question. And for the A part, the consequences of poor audit quality work, which is 5 marks. It's 5 marks. So I think this section requires us to identify the negative impact of an audit failure. So our answer should go beyond the immediate financial cost, or it should include beyond financial cost. It should include, okay, I think financial costs, reputational damage. It should include that reputational damage more emphatically, regulatory action and internal impacts on the firm. So I think the scenario provides several clues for us to take from, such as the shareholder's reputation and the threat of legal action. So we need to structure our answers as a list of points like we've seen provided here. Each point should be a distinct consequence. So start with the most obvious and direct consequences, the legal damages, and then move to the less immediate but equally important ones like loss of reputation, disciplinary action. You can link your points directly to the case study to show application. So for example, you can link your points by saying legal damages and costs are strengthened by the shareholders of NigerCap PLC to the audit firm. Then that answer will resonate more to pick your marks clearly. And for the B part, actions to ensure high quality or high audit quality, which is 9 marks. So in writing this part, I think the core of the question asks for specific and implementable recommendations for the new partner. So I think your answer must go beyond generic statements and focus on the principles of quality management. Think about the entire audit cycle from team selection to final report review. So the question asks for 6 actions. You should provide a clear, separate, well-defined point for each. So I think the solution provides a good prototype, and it offers more than the required number of points, and the solution is distinct. I think the professional actions, the good points like from the solution includes ethical and independence considerations. This is crucial given the poor or the prior poor audit. So ethical and independence considerations must be brought to the fore. Then the team's competence, the new partner must ensure the team he's using is capable. Then supervision and review, which is a key element of system of quality management. Then consultation, speaking to important areas or contentious and difficult areas like the investment property valuation. Then the engagement partner review. So that will add value, and the independent review is actually vital. And proper planning and documentation, which is foundation for a good audit. So you need to read general strategies. I think you need to read the case study carefully because the scenario contains details. For example, overstatement of profit and payment or overpayment of taxes, misstatement in the value of their property led by Amy Smith, one of the partners who is supposed to retire in 2018, that are directly relevant to your answer. So use this detail in the case study to add context and I think specificity to your answers. It makes a lot of sense. To make a lot of sense. Then show application. Simply listing, I think, generic points from the study text or from our slides will not really get you the full mark. So you must show that you understand why these actions are necessary in the context of the poor prior year audit. So for example, when discussing review of prior year working papers, you need to explain that it is to understand the source of the errors and to ensure they are corrected. So take note of that. And looking at the marking key, the guide is very specific. 1.25 mark for each of the 4 points in part A and 1.5 mark for each of the points or the 6 points in part B. It means you need to provide a sufficient number of distinct, well-explained points to meet the requirements for full marks. So providing more than the numbered or minimum number of points, as in like you see in the solution, is a good strategy with time in mind, please, with time. So you need to ensure you meet the threshold. Even if a point is not perfectly aligned with the key, your best points will be picked. So I think based on this marking key, the guidance is that part A is 1.25 mark per point structure. It means you should provide at least 4 consequences. The solution provides 6. So like that's offering you a safety net. The key is to be actually concise and accurate. You need to be concise, and the consequences listed: legal damages, loss of client, reputational damage, and the likes are all highly relevant and directly applicable to the scenario. Then for the B part, the 1.5 mark per point for 6 points means each point must be a substantial, well-articulated recommendation. The solution points are all excellent examples, in my opinion, of professional actions that an audit firm would take to improve quality. So the inclusion of a point on engagement, quality review, and consultation are contentious on I think contentious matters like the investment property valuation is particularly strong, and it's directly it will directly address the issues raised in the case study. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, that will be my thoughts on that question, detailed case study, a prototype of what could be examined. If we have any question, any contribution, any observation, so that we can run to question 4. That same diet tested the same, another question, November 2017. I think question 4 was based on practice management also. Okay, so any questions, any thoughts, any concerns? All right, let's run. Our time seems to be flying fast. Okay, so question 4 speaks to Pony Bank PLC. The management of Pony Bank PLC and its fully owned subsidiary, Ponte Microfinance Bank Limited, arranged and invested bogus loans that totaled 5.5 billion worthless assets, which the former auditors did not detect. The former auditors claimed that a clique of highly clever and organized swindlers among the staff of Pony Bank deceived the auditors and devoted themselves to defeating the audit and covering up their nefarious acts. The firm of chartered accountants Vic Viv and Co. has just taken up the audit of Pony Bank PLC. You are required to A, advise the engagement partner on the risks involved in taking up the audit, 4 marks. B, recommend appropriate actions on the part of management and your firm to overcome the financial statements risks. 8 marks. C, prepare a management letter, which includes 2 matters suitable for submission to the directors, 8 marks. Wow. 20-mark question. Incredible. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this question highlights a fundamental challenge for candidates. And it's the same fundamental challenge of applying theoretical knowledge to audit risk, or theoretical knowledge of audit risk to a complex real-world scenario. This is a real-world scenario. So as I assume, let's look at the examiner's report. 90% of the candidates attempted the question, and performance was poor, as expected. And you see that the examiner's report reveals that while many candidates attempted the questions, 90%, their performance was poor due to a lack of in-depth knowledge of audit risks. This indicates the candidates can define audit risk, but they struggle to identify and discuss the specific risks presented in a given case study and recommend appropriate practical actions to mitigate them. The scenario, I think, is a high-risk engagement involving prior fraud, lack of integrity, potential management override, making it actually a test of advanced professional judgment. Yeah, in my opinion, I think so. Okay, so let's look at or share some thoughts on how to answer such a complex question. So part A talks about advise the engagement partner on the risk involved in taking up the audits. So we have 4 marks. In writing this section, we are required to identify the key risks arising from the case study. So focus on the core issues presented: prior fraud, management and staff collusion, big risk, and the unreliability of prior financial statements and internal evidence. So the risks here are not just financial, but also professional and reputational for the audit firm. So how do we write? List the risks clearly. So for a 4-mark question, aim for about 3 to 4 well-explained points. Don't just name the risk. Briefly, in 1 line, explain why it's a risk in this context. So instead of just stating lack of integrity, explain that the client's working environment has been corrupted with lack of integrity, which means the internal evidence cannot be relied upon. Something like that makes a lot of sense. The client's working environment has been corrupted. Yes, something like that among staff, leading to the creation of non-existent loans. So internal evidence cannot be relied upon. So something like that. But stating lack of integrity is not sufficient enough. So take note of it. I think then for the B part, actions to reduce the risks. It's a crucial section that tests your professional judgment. Actually, you must provide specific practical actions for both management of Pony Bank and your firm, Vic, Viv, and Co., to address the high-risk environments. So your recommendations should directly address the risk identified in the part A of the question. So organize your thoughts and respond by addressing actions for each party. So for your firm, actions should focus on risk mitigation, such as obtaining external evidence, legal counsel, and being conscious. And for the client management, the action should focus on overhauling the control environment entirely and addressing the root cause of the fraud, which includes conducting investigations, overhauling departments, and improving internal controls. So you need to use a numbered list, numbered points, or bullet list to present each action clearly, just like you've seen in the solution. All right, then the C part, a whooping 8-mark question, speaks to a management letter. So you need to actually prepare a formal management letter addressed to the management, to the directors, or those charged with governance. This letter should identify and explain significant internal control weaknesses or other matters observed during the audit. So the letter must have a formal structure like the date, the salutation, clear headings for each observation, an explanation of the implication of the witness, and the recommendation. So you can see the breakdown of that on the solution the examiner provided, a good prototype. So follow the format of a professional letter like you see. The body of the letter should be divided into distinct points as required. So for each point, state the observation, the implication. And the implication is the risk it poses to the financial statement of the company, and a clear recommendation for management to address it. So a good strategy is to use the two key issues from the case study: the creation of fictitious loans and the breakdown of internal controls, something like that. So if you use this prototype, the solution is a strong example of the required format and content. So generally, I think strategies around answering such kind of complex questions, please apply, application. The key to this question is to directly link your answers to the specifics of the Pony Bank scenario. Don't just recite generic audit risks. So mention the 5.5 billion bogus loans, the fictitious assets, and more importantly, the collusion between staff. This is very important to mention. So show your professional judgment. You see that the question is designed to test your ability to think like an engagement partner. Your recommendations should be well reasoned and your thoughts should be practical. They should demonstrate an understanding of both the auditor's responsibilities and management's role in governance. Then the area of adhering to format requirements, like the part C, failing to format your response as a management letter, using that letter format to result in loss of marks, irrespective of your content. So please ensure you include all the relevant elements, the proper salutation, the body paragraphs with specific observations, implications, recommendations, and a professional closeout or closing. Be good. Thank you. Yours truly, engagement partner. It's very important. Okay, so let's look at the marking key. I hope there's a marking key. Yes, let's look at the marking key now. So for part A, 4 marks, the marking guide awards points for identifying the key risks. So the solution correctly, you see, identifies the non-reliance on internal evidence and prior year balances as a direct consequence of the fraud and the lack of integrity. You do this, you're showing deeper understanding than just a simple statement on high risk. In the B part, the 8 marks, this part is what the most marks actually, and requires you to provide a blend of actions for both the audit firm and the client. So from the solutions we've analyzed, it lists several practical high impact actions, such as a 100% review of loans, the complete overhaul of the credit department, the firm obtaining legal counsel. See that this level of detail, two-pronged approach, speaking to management and the auditor's action is what is required for the full 8 marks. Then the part C is 8 marks. The marks here are likely allocated for the correct format, quality of content. So a good letter should have an introduction, concluding paragraph,